Hey, what's happening? It's Friday. The closing bell is done. About a half hour after the close. I know, I don't know. I was taking a look at it. Let's talk about it. AMC there. Why? It had spiked there. I mean, it closed, what, up a couple of cents? Then all of a sudden, a little bit of volume come in. We'll pull it up here on the NASDAQ as well. You can look at the volume there in the top left corner right over here. A little bit of volume came in there and it spiked to 298 and then quickly back down to 270. So very interesting. We take off the extended hour. Let's see, close at 267. I mean, yeah, with AMC, it's been pretty flat in that regard. But that's very interesting after hours price action here. Let's take a look at the 1 minute. And we'll go over a look at some of the unusual whale option flow as well today. But yeah, that was kind of an interesting pop because that highlighted whoever was buying the 250 puts back on March 28th. They've been cashing out the last few days, especially as AMC went under 250 today and those puts became in the money. So I'm not sure what was going on with some settlement after hours in that regard. I jumped over to investor relations just to, refresh. Was there some type of news or anything? I didn't see Adam Aaron post, and I jumped over to the SEC, website. Did some filing come out? So I jumped over here to the NASDAQ, and about 600,000 volume traded after hours. So you see that high, after hour high, 298, after hour low, 265. It's very interesting. About 600,000 shares coming across there. So I don't know if it's hard to say there. Market maker might have repositioned on some of those options. And let's take a look at what was traded in that regard today with unusual whales. I just thought that was interesting because boom, there it popped all of a sudden and then came back down. I know the folks that listen to the videos that I put out day in and day out. I know we've talked about, cover call strategy, especially on the AMC stock. I've talked in the past about selling calls on the stock. So, for anyone that was selling calls, maybe into the close there and then saw that kind of pop, you probably were like, whoa, those calls just became a little bit more expensive. And no worries. I mean, you might have been, for example, selling AMC calls because maybe you're wanting to exit a position. So you're selling calls and then you saw that and you're like, ooh, maybe this is the time to leave. But for example, let's say that price held at 298. If you sold calls here Friday afternoon before the close and say Monday it opened up at 298, which was the high there in after hours, those calls you just sold would actually they would have gone down in value, meaning they would have increased on the premium side because you sold them. Say if you sold a call for $10 and with that spike in price, now that call's $20, you would essentially be down $10 on selling it. But maybe your objective was for the stock to get close to 3 so you could exit your position. It just depends, what the scenario was. They're just kind of random there. Boom, popped. I mean, you'll have to let me know to the reply on the video. I was looking for news. Like I said, I didn't see anything from AMC. Didn't see anything from Adam Aaron. So you'll have to let me know. I haven't cruised X to see exactly what that was. I mean, I know there was some, I know Minecraft movie opens. In that regard this weekend, a little bit of buzz and then, might be 130, 150 million on that particular film. But let's jump over here because I kind of saw that AMC just kind of popped there. And then, let's see here. We'll get over to my profile here. Yeah, it was a 298 spike there. Because I just saw I had closed up shop and then we saw it popped 8%. And I was like, what is it rallying for? And then, I saw that high. So when I jumped over onto the option flow today, I mean, nothing too crazy in that regard. It was about 2.5 mil in total premium, but net premium was actually up today, about 500,000. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So if we look at the last few days there, for the past 7 days is the largest day for net call premium on AMC. Something kind of interesting there. If we back up even, the largest in the last 14 days. Let's see if it's the largest in the last 30. No, pretty close though, back in late February. But in the last 2 weeks, today was actually the highest day for net call premium. So for those that follow the stock or trade the stock or long or short the stock or whatever your agenda is with the stock, let's take a look at that though. That's kind of interesting today, especially seeing that after hours price action. Today was, April 4th, an expiry in that regard. Man, nice little interesting move there with the net call premium. So let's take a look at that. Let's see here. I'll give you a second here to pause. and take a screenshot. There's our highest open interest contracts as of now. This will update on Monday once we get the new open interest updates. So you're welcome to take a, pause the video here, take a screenshot. In fact, let me do you a solid and zoom that in just a little bit for you. Does that help? Then you can screenshot that. Then we can add it to, your information there. Add it to your files or whatever you want to call it, your DD per se. But yeah, if you look at the premium here, let's look at that for a second. Historically, today with total premium at 2.5 mil, pretty large for AMC today. Last day it was close to that, was March 14th. Kind of interesting. I like seeing that net premium a little higher, especially with that boom, that kind of move in after hours. So volatility up a little bit today, implied move based on the option chain up as well, percentage-wise. Very interesting stuff. And then highest volume contracts traded today, $3 calls for next week. Those 2.5 puts we talked about on my X, you can go back and check those posts. Actually, I posted those earlier today, so go back and check that out. And then I also talked about that in the past videos, but originally where that idea for AMC had come up about cashing out. So here was the post where I talked about whoever was buying the 250 puts for April 17th and the April 25th expiry on March 28th, they've been slowly cashing out. So the 250 put for April 17th, they're paying about $3 a contract right here. Hit a high of 18 today. So you can see a lot of buying and slowly leaving, taking gains. And then the 250 put for April 25th, they were paying $4 a contract back on the 28th, and they were loading and now starting to walk out a little bit of that position. So we'll take a look at the open interest because it's been decreasing a little bit each day. So trader definitely took advantage of AMC going below 250 as those puts went in the money. But I actually put that idea out on March 12th. So for those that follow close, I talked about AMC trader looking to profit off some volatility or quote, potential decline in price as they loaded 250 puts for April 4th, which was today. So those actually were at one time in the money. It came across the unusual whale scanner and then some of the multi-leg $5 puts that we've been talking about actively. So, and I had highlighted the net premium, kind of what was going on in regards to the calls and what was actually being loaded there, just to try to give those a heads up. Because as we looked, when I went back and posted that, we'll pull up this chart here. That's when I posted the stock was $3, and then it fell to $2.45. So from that post, it was at $3. So if you kind of followed in suit in that regard, there was definitely bearish flow on the stock. So you're at 3, then it dropped to $2.45 low today. So that's what I was referring to into those puts that we had talked about just a second ago when we were looking at that flow, like the 2.5 puts for next week. But let's look at the $3 calls. Let's see, for next week, they came in today. Let's take a look here. It was right toward the close. So market makers might have been doing a little bit of hedging against these potentially. Maybe at 298, those almost were, in the money. And after hours, sometimes, when they're settling contracts, depending on price, there's been plenty of times the price will be different after hours than what it was at the close. And depending on settlement of contracts, sometimes shares get assigned in that regard. That is absolutely a fact. It does happen. So interesting to note that activity picking up on the $3 call for April 11th next week, which is actually my birthday. Believe it or not. Yeah, April 11th, an expiry day. How about that? And I was bummed, too, because I thought we were going to be able to order we were going to pre-order the Nintendo Switch on Wednesday as like my early birthday, but with the tariffs, there's a delay from Nintendo, so we'll see. But yeah, they grabbed those right into the close. See about 6,000 on the volume. We'll check out that open interest Monday because it did grow a little bit from Thursday's activity. See Thursday's volume. Let's pull that up on our 2-day chart using the trusty unusual whales. So you see that trader entered early yesterday on Thursday morning. Might have been some leaving the table this morning, maybe added as well, but certainly added there. Now, we're not talking a lot here, 27,000 in premium. However, it was just, noting the amount of volume there as each contract represents 100 shares. So not a lot in that regard premium, but something interesting that might have, kind of moved the stock a little bit towards the end of the close, just with the volume. So let's look at that 2.5 puts like we were talking about. See more of those wound down today. Exactly what I was just referencing in this post here about those particular AMC traders that were repositioning there. You can see they were definitely selling some more of those today. And we noted that the open interest had been decreasing. Like I said, a trader has been stepping out. So if you want to see what that looked like, here was the trader coming in, paying $3 a contract, $4 a contract, $3, and then a high today of $15. So not too shabby in that regard. And that was that particular trader. So we'll see. You can see last 3 days definitely unwinding of that position, more than likely, as they should. As they're getting closer to expiry, they definitely don't want to get, too much more theta decay. As they get closer to expiry, the contracts become less and less valuable regardless, just due to time decay. So yeah, they added those on the 28th with the volume. We've seen it come over in open interest. So yeah, definitely a good trade in that particular regard. I'm sure the trader made a few dollars on that. And then $27 calls. This has been going on AMC on this particular chain for the June 20th. A lot of people are like, oh, they're buying. No. A lot of people were selling those calls to other people. People that might own the stock already, selling covered calls, back in December when they were getting $32 a contract. Today they're trading for $4 a contract. So, for example, if I owned AMC and I didn't think it was going to close over 27, or I didn't mind it closing over 27 and having my shares assigned, I could start peeling these calls off when the premium was high and then wait for it either to expire worthless because the stock closed under 27, or maybe I, was just like, hey, I want to go ahead and capture the gains, so I go ahead and buy them back for many points cheaper than what I sold them for. So, and you can tell that by, if you look, 77,000 bid volume, 80,000 asked. So this is a combination of buyers and sellers. It isn't just people loading $27 calls because they're bullish. There could be some, but the reality is there's plenty of AMC retail investors who are deploying covered call strategies. So they're going to sell covered calls in essence to capture premium in hopes to then maybe buy more shares, lower their cost average. It just all depends what their strategy is and how they're invested in AMC. I'm just giving you, a typical scenario in that regard. If I was selling those, or was looking for, a covered call premium, a strategy in that regard, selling out of the money calls with time, because these are almost 1,000% out of the money, unless the stock's going to rally. Those are probably going to expire worthless. But then even if they didn't, say AMC for whatever reason did close at 27 or higher, you would then, however many contracts you sold, have your shares, they'd be sold or assigned, at $27 a share, which you probably wouldn't mind. But that just depends on where your share price, your cost basis for AMC. So that's been going on with the $27 calls there. And then the 2.5 puts for today. Let's take a look at that, because it was the same type of scenario when I posted about when they first started pouring into the stock. And I think there was some, let's see, the last 3 days here. So we're not talking a lot of premium here, 8,000. But yeah, like I said, the open interest did increase and there might have been some sellers like, I might go down there, but I mean, they were $1 each, so not really much to talk about in that regard. But that was just some of the highest volume. Now, these $3 calls for May 2nd also did appear. Might have been some selling here. Let's see. $13, because these were alerted on unusual whales for volume larger than open interest. So volume today, 38.40, but the open interest, 32.80. So about 50,000 in premium. We'll see what the open interest updates look like on Monday. I'll post those. They'll update Monday morning, and then I'll post. So it kind of helps to see, if you take the volume at face value and then not look at the open interest update the next day, it may not be accurate. So 3.5 calls for next week also saw some activity, pretty light on the premium. But we'll sort the premium here. You can go ahead and pause or take a screenshot. These were your highest volume contracts today. Here's the volume, current open interest, the low and the high. This was the last price they were filled, and then your strike and your expiry. So you're welcome to take a look at that. But let's look at where that money was actually spent on those options as we wrap up this video. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know it's Friday, it's the weekend, but let's talk about it. So it's opportunity, maybe. You never know. That's what we look for. My whole focus here has always been to help others and see others lose less and win a little more. That's the whole point of all of this. So if we sort this by highest premium today, here's your premium spent, total receipt, total premium bought and sold. I mean, that's how I usually sort with any of the options, as you've seen in my past videos. 3.5 calls, saw some activity for January into the close there. So that was your highest today, about 100,000 total premium, 1,700 volume. So we'll take a look at that, see if any of that appears in new open interest. More than likely it will, as these appear to be filled near the ask today, which would suggest bought to open. So that's kind of interesting to see there into the close, about 100,000 worth. Not bad though in terms of premium, about 31% out of the money. So we'll definitely take a look at those. They were trading for around $55 a piece, 57 there towards the end. Looks like trader was filling blocks of 500. So 500, 500, and 500. So we'll take a look at those. That was the 3.5 call for January. So plenty of time, 8 months to expiry on those. The 2.5 puts we already talked about. Let's take a look at these 2.5 calls in the money for January 27. Let's see what they do here. They buy it and sell it. We'll have to take a look at that. We see volume today larger than the open interest, so that's the reason for the alert. Some bit on the bid, some at the ask, and that just be based on the price at the time. But sometimes these contracts, if there's not a lot of liquidity there, you may get a good fill. Like for example, 80, size of 80, the spot was 120. That's what they paid, which was the bid. So that's denoted as the bid over here. This was actually part of a flow alert that came in this afternoon. So if you had unusual whales, you would get information like this if you've got it customized or set up. And I'm always happy to help anyone set up unusual whales. So as you can see here, as denoted as part of a flow alert. So, and then as price shifted a little bit on the next fill, you can see 120 again, but the bid and ask changed, 119, 120. So it shows ask here in that regard. And then 120, 120. So the price might have shifted in that regard, because the first initial would make you think they were selling them, but it could have just been a good fill at the time. So that's why it's denoted at the bid. So we just look at the spot price paid that was very consistent throughout in that regard. So we take a look at that flow alert. This is how it would have come across to you. And this was on, let's see, New York Stock Exchange, Amex options. Yeah, let's see, 200 size, 24,000, mostly ask here. So yeah, we'll take a look at that open interest. These are in the money calls with time. You know, that's the 27th January 2027. So we'll take a look at that. We'll see what transpired here. Let's see, 200 block there. Roughly a 200 block there, 120 each. So we'll take a look at that. About 50,000 total premium, something to look at, you know, because they're always in the money, or it's in the money. I talked about those puts already on the X post. The $3 calls for May 2nd saw about 50,000 in total premium today. Volume a little bit more than open interest, which has been growing a little bit. So this concerns me. We'll see here if this was just somebody leaving at that particular price. We'll have to take a look here. Sometimes good to back up the data here. Zoom out, you know, in your timeline when you're using unusual whales. And sometimes you'll see some activity. You know, they might have been buying them here at $11, and then maybe they left at $13, a couple of bucks, but you never really know. Contracts can change hands. Like if I buy to open a contract, it could be from somebody that was selling, you know, to close one, or vice versa. For example, if I sold to open a contract to somebody because they were buying a contract as well. So you can't, an order is a buyer and a seller, or a seller and a buyer. You can't have one without the other. So if we're buying a contract, it's because someone's selling one, or vice versa. Same with stock. You can't have a buyer without a seller. A complete order is a match between a buyer and a seller. So shares or options don't just come out of nowhere. Sure, there's naked options and naked stocks and things like that, but we're not going to talk about that. The point is that an order on the stock exchange is a buyer and a seller. So yeah, we'll take a look at some of those open interest updates Monday. You're welcome to take a look. Here's like your current open interest, the volume today. Here's the premium spent. So if you want to take a screenshot, so that way you have more time to look at it when you're not in this video. Here's all of your strikes and your expiries as well. Out of them, let's see these $3 for January 27. Let's see, that was right into the close. So yeah, 200 for about 28,000 in premium. So we'll take a look at that. We'll see if that also comes across in new open interest on Monday. So I mean, the IMC did spike to 298, but this gives that particular trader some time on that particular thesis, especially while the stock was trading 245 low today. Puts it down around, I believe, what was that last low on AMC? I know a lot of people don't want to talk about it. I think it was like wow, where are we at here? 246, 238. So today, 245. See, I don't know. We'll see. RSI kind of popped there. Yesterday was 26. Today, 29. Well, let me turn off the extended hour data. That way it's most accurate. 27, but the RSI yesterday dropped to 26. So we'll see. We'll see. A lot of volume today. Is at the bottom on AMC? I'm not sure. We'll take a look, though. Some of these traders might think it is based on, spending 30 grand on some premium for slightly out of the money, just not barely. I mean, it's right kind of there, about 32,000. So not a whole lot, but still a good chunk of change, a good living there. $3 calls for next week. We talked about those as well. Those are the ones that kind of came in. See, I could have been some hedging relating to some of that. Some of these $3 calls that came through, especially those ones that got some time behind them, carry a little bit higher. Let's take a look here real quick. I like the $3 here. Let me turn on some additional data here real quick. I thought I had it here. I thought I had the delta in there. Let's see, profit. I thought I had the delta on here. I'll have to take a look at that again, but because I thought I had that on the option for each individual one, but I'm at. Oh wow! As I was recording, it's literally just thunder boom, like almost scared me right out of my desk. Not scared me, I guess, just startled me. I don't know if you heard that. I use a Rode Studio Mic Pro, like a studio mic to record. So I don't know. You might have caught that, but you be careful. Yeah, so it was interesting there seeing that. I like that though. Yeah, we'll see. We'll take a look at some of the open interest. I'll post. I know you don't want to bore you with too many more details and go on, but hey, a lot of people, they like the videos, they enjoy the content. So, like I said, take a screenshot of this. Take all that data in if you want. That's what I would recommend, or pause, whatever you need to do. I don't mind. So that way we can take a look at some of that. But yeah, that's where your top premium was at today in that regard. And the IV up there a little bit. So you never know in that regard. When the IV starts moving up, could be expectation of a price change. So let's take a look here. One other thing, we'll pull up the AMC because like we talked about briefly here in the beginning. I was talking about the volatility, and that's what I was saying. Why the options might be moving in that regard. The reason is the IV popped a little bit today to 84%. The implied move based on the options 10%. So could be a move coming. Might be the bottom. I'm not sure with AMC. We'll take a look at though because some of these traders feel that maybe the price action today, from a technical standpoint, is the bottom. We'll have to take a look though, see how it progresses. You always take everything with a grain of salt. I'm a big fan of price has memory. It knows where it's been. It knows where it's been at, and it's been down here. On AMC's not had the best regard. And I mean with the weekly chart, I have to really navigate it here to. Wow, it's tough. Yeah, I get it. Believe me, I get it. But it was kind of the same vibe I remember kind of last year. You guys remember that? Let's go back. April. Let's see, April 15th. It was a nice drawdown. March seemed decent. Stock was still around $4.5. Boom. Goes to 3. Goes under. RSI bottoms at 18 on April 15th. Catch a little bit of action. There's some roaring kitty action. Stock saw 1188. So a little bit of move there. Mid-April. And then a decline down, So, I mean, you're kind of back where he started. Almost with that 245 low. But I'm not saying history repeats itself, but maybe it does. You know, the RSI, which is a lagging indicator, doesn't really mean anything. So it comes after the data, but let's see if it reset. You just have to follow it, but that's wild, you know, right back where it started. Here it was, right back where it started. So you have to take a look at it. I know I'll be going to see the accountant too with my son for his birthday. Every little bit helps. And I'll be buying popcorn for sure. And soda. And if they do have any like the accountant 2 merch or movie stuff, I'll probably have to grab that. Because I love the accountant and my son and I, it's just an experience we'll be able to share. But I talked about that in today's, this morning's video. So yeah, a little AMC action. So let's see as we wrap up. Let's see what has. I wanted to go back to the price action here, just because while we were talking, I wasn't actually looking at it anymore. So right back where it started. What an interesting. I know got everybody real excited there with the 10-point jump. But let's see how that volume is shaking up here. 596. Let's get a refresh here. Make sure I give you the most accurate data here. So about 701,000 shares traded after hours. So it's currently at what, 268? High of 298, low of 263. Yeah, 700,000 shares. Almost, getting there, 750,000. So, but yeah, you guys enjoy your weekend. I hope you have a great one. A little something for the AMC crowd here. Hope you did enjoy it. Hope it's something you can learn from. Always happy to answer questions. So drop, a reply down there, and I'll do my best to answer it. But if you watched it all the way through, why don't you leave the reply Minecraft movie? And I know you watched the video all the way through. But you all have a fabulous night, weekend, and we'll see you around the internet on Monday. Oh, new GameStop video on Monday morning too. Just one like's all I always ask for.